The quantum alarm screamed across ECHO base at precisely 300 hours Earth Standard Time. Dr. Maya Patel's fingers flew across the holographic interface, her dark eyes reflecting cascading streams of data. Something was wrong with the background radiation of space itself, as if reality was being stretched thin by unseen hands. "Director, we're detecting massive dimensional distortions at the edge of the Kuiper belt," she announced, her voice steady despite the implications of what she was seeing. "Whatever's coming, it's big. And it's not using any known form of propulsion." Director Chen Zhang stood behind her, his weathered face illuminated by the pulsing red emergency lights. After 30 years leading Earth's deep space monitoring initiative, he'd thought he'd seen everything. He was wrong. "Show me," he ordered. The main display lit up with a three-dimensional map of the solar system. Vast areas of space were becoming darker, not just the absence of light, but the absence of everything, even the quantum foam that made up the fabric of space-time itself. "It's as if something is eating reality," Maya muttered, more to herself than anyone else. "The quantum signature suggests consciousness-based technology, but at a scale we've never encountered." The first attacks came without warning. Across Earth, people began to report nightmares, vivid dreams of shadows that fought and hunted. Within days, the first victims appeared. They were found in their beds, their homes, their offices, physically unharmed but completely empty. Brain scans showed normal activity, but there was no one home. Their consciousness had simply vanished. The Shadowcasters, as humanity would come to call them, hadn't bothered with diplomacy or demands. They were hunters, and Earth was their feeding ground. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had assumed that human consciousness was simple prey. They didn't know that for the past decade, Earth had been running the Quantum Consciousness Initiative. Deep beneath the Himalayas, in a facility shielded from both physical and dimensional detection, 5,000 of humanity's most powerful psychics had been training to extend their awareness into the quantum realm. "We've confirmed 60 million consciousness extractions in the first wave," General Sarah O'Connor reported to the Emergency Council. Her hologram flickered slightly, a sign of the quantum interference the Shadowcasters were causing. "But we've also confirmed something else. The subjects in the QCI program, they can see them. Actually see them in their true form." Maya pulled up the images captured by the QCI subjects. The Shadowcasters appeared as vast, crystalline structures that existed in more dimensions than the human mind could properly process. They didn't invade physical space so much as folded around themselves, creating pockets of null reality where they could feed on the energy of consciousness itself. "The good news," Maya continued, "is that this confirms my theory. Human consciousness has properties that are unique in our observable universe. We don't just perceive quantum states, we can influence them. The Shadowcasters may be advanced, but they're specialized predators. They've evolved to hunt simple consciousness. What we have is something else entirely." Director Zhang nodded slowly. "How long until they reach Earth proper?" "At their current pace, 72 hours. But we're already seeing the effects of their dimensional distortions. Global communications are becoming unstable. The quantum internet is showing increasing latency. We need to act now." "Then it's time," General O'Connor declared. "Activate Project Lightbringer." Deep in the Himalayan facility, 5,000 trained psychics began to synchronize their consciousness. They weren't trying to match the Shadowcasters' power. They were going to do something the dimensional predators had never encountered before. They were going to turn the quantum realm itself into a weapon. Maya felt it first, a resonance in the quantum field that made her skin tingle. The Shadowcasters felt it too. Their dimensional distortions flickered, showing uncertainty for the first time. "They're sending us something," one of the QCI subjects reported, his voice trained with effort. "Not words exactly. More like concepts. They're laughing at us. They say we're food. That consciousness is meant to be consumed, refined, used as fuel for their dimensional engines." Director Zhang's expression hardened. Send them our reply. 5,000 synchronized minds reached out into the quantum realm and began to push back against the darkness. The war for Earth's consciousness had begun, and humanity was about to show the universe why you should never underestimate a species that had evolved to question reality itself. The lights in HFY base flickered as the first quantum battle in human history began. Maya watched the displays as reality itself began to warp under the strain of two fundamentally different forms of consciousness colliding in dimensions humans had only begun to understand. The Shadowcasters had come hunting for prey. Instead, they had found equals, and humanity was just getting started. The quantum synchronization chamber hummed with barely contained power as Dr. Maya Patel calibrated the neural interfaces. Around her, 20 of Earth's strongest psychics lay in reclined pods, their minds already reaching into realms that normal human consciousness could barely comprehend. Neural sync at 87% and climbing, she reported, watching as patterns of light danced across the quantum field visualizer. We're seeing unprecedented levels of dimensional resonance. The discovery had come almost by accident. While the Shadowcasters could create and manipulate areas of null space, humans could do something even more remarkable. They could perceive the spaces between spaces, the quantum shadows that existed in the fragments of reality that even the dimensional predators overlooked. Lieutenant David Chen, their youngest psychic, was the first to weaponize this ability. During a Shadowcaster attack on Sydney, he had reached into these overlooked quantum spaces and found he could twist them, creating feedback loops that disrupted the predator's dimensional fields. The attack had failed, and for the first time, the Shadowcasters retreated. They don't understand what we're doing, David explained during the emergency briefing, his eyes still glowing faintly with quantum energy. They see reality as something to be consumed. We see it as something to be shaped. That fundamental difference is our advantage. The Shadowcasters had responded by escalating their attacks. Instead of targeting individuals, they began creating vast fields of null space, attempting to harvest entire cities at once. But humanity had been preparing. Quantum shield networks are online in 47 major population centers. General O'Connor announced, her hologram now stabilized by the new quantum buffering technology. We can't stop their dimensional incursions completely, but we can slow them down, give our psychics time to counterattack. Maya watched as the first real battle unfolded over the skies of Tokyo. The Shadowcasters appeared as vast, crystalline geometries that bent light and space around them, their null fields reaching down toward the city like hungry mouths. But this time, humanity was ready. A network of quantum amplifiers, built using insights gained from the HFY program, activated across the city. As the Shadowcasters attempted to create their harvesting fields, synchronized teams of human psychics reached into the quantum shadows, using them to disrupt the dimensional predator's control over spacetime. The result was spectacular. The null fields collapsed in cascading waves of quantum energy, and for the first time, the Shadowcasters experienced pain. Their crystalline forms shuddered, dimensional harmonics screaming across frequencies that made reality itself shiver. We've confirmed their weakness, Maya reported, her fingers dancing across holographic displays as data poured in. They can't properly process quantum shadows because they've evolved to ignore them. When we manipulate these spaces, it creates dimensional feedback they can't adapt to. But victory came with a price. The human psychics were pushing their minds to the absolute limit. After each engagement, they emerged with bleeding noses and severe migraines. Some reported seeing things that human minds weren't meant to comprehend, glimpses of realities that existed in more dimensions than their brains could process. We need to find a way to amplify our abilities without burning out our psychics, Director Zhang insisted. We can hurt them now, but we need to be able to drive them back completely. The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Sarah Chen, a quantum physicist working on the SHIELD network, noticed something peculiar in the data. The quantum shadows weren't just spaces between spaces. They were reflections of consciousness itself. "Look at these patterns," she explained, pulling up complex dimensional graphs. "When our psychics manipulate the quantum shadows, they're not just affecting space-time. They're creating echoes of human consciousness. And these echoes, they persist. They multiply. Every time we fight back, we're literally filling these dimensional spaces with copies of human awareness." Maya's eyes widened as she understood the implications. We're not just defending ourselves. We're changing the fundamental nature of the battlefield. The more we fight, the more human consciousness spreads through the quantum shadows. The Shadowcasters had noticed too. Their attacks became more desperate, more frenzied. They could feel their hunting grounds being transformed by something they had never encountered before, a prey species that could reshape reality itself. In the quantum synchronization chamber, Maya watched as the psychics pushed deeper into the spaces between spaces. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. They were fighting to redefine the very nature of consciousness in their corner of the universe. The war was evolving, and with each battle, the line between predator and prey became increasingly blurred. The Shadowcasters had come to feed on human consciousness, but they were about to learn that consciousness could fight back in ways they had never imagined possible. Project Resonance was born in the depths of humanity's desperation. After a month of continuous attacks, Earth's psychics were reaching their breaking point. Even with the quantum amplifiers, they couldn't maintain the mental strain of fighting beings that existed in dimensions beyond human comprehension. "We need to change our approach," Maya announced to the Emergency Council, her hologram flickering with quantum interference. "We've been trying to match their power directly. Instead, we need to use our understanding of quantum shadows to create something new." The breakthrough came from studying the persistent echoes of human consciousness in the quantum shadows. These echoes weren't just passive remnants. They were active, growing, evolving. Each time humanity fought back against the Shadowcasters, they left behind fragments of awareness that continued to reshape the dimensional spaces. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a specialist in quantum computing, made the critical connection. These echoes, they're self-organizing, creating their own neural networks in the quantum realm. We're not just defending space, we're terraforming it with human consciousness. The implications were staggering. The Shadowcasters hadn't just chosen Earth as a hunting ground. They had inadvertently triggered an evolutionary leap in human consciousness. Project Resonance would take this accidental discovery and turn it into humanity's greatest weapon. "Initial tests are promising," Maya reported, displaying complex dimensional maps in the war room. "When our psychics channel their abilities through the quantum echo networks, their power increases exponentially. The echoes act as natural amplifiers, multiplying human consciousness through the quantum shadows." The first full-scale test of Project Resonance took place over the ruins of Moscow. The Shadowcasters had established a massive harvesting field there, their crystalline forms distorting reality for miles around. Lieutenant Chen led the counterattack, his mind linked to the quantum echo network. The result exceeded all expectations. As David reached into the quantum shadows, the echoes of thousands of previous battles responded. His consciousness expanded through the network, growing, multiplying, becoming something that even the Shadowcasters could not ignore. "They're screaming," he reported, his voice distorted by the dimensional energies flowing through him. "Not in pain. In fear. They've never seen anything like this, never imagined their prey could become this." The harvesting field over Moscow collapsed as the Shadowcasters retreated, their crystalline forms vibrating with frequencies that human instruments could barely detect. But they left behind something unexpected: fragments of their own consciousness, shattered by contact with the quantum echo network. Dr. Rodriguez spent 3 days analyzing these fragments before calling an emergency meeting. "These aren't just random pieces," she explained, her hands shaking slightly. "The Shadowcasters, they're not natural beings. They're engineered, created by something else to harvest consciousness across multiple dimensions." The revelation sent shockwaves through Earth's leadership. The Shadowcasters weren't the apex predators they appeared to be. They were tools, weapons created by some greater intelligence to feed an unknown purpose. Maya worked with Elena to decode more of the fragments. What they found was both terrifying and inspiring. The Shadowcasters' creators had engineered them to harvest simple, predictable forms of consciousness. Human awareness, complex, contradictory, constantly questioning and evolving, was something they had never encountered before. We're not just fighting them, Maya realized. We're infecting them. Every time they touch our quantum echo networks, we're introducing chaos into their ordered systems. Human consciousness is acting like a virus in their dimensional machinery. Project Resonance expanded rapidly. Quantum amplifiers were modified to not just defend against the Shadowcasters, but to actively spread human consciousness through the quantum shadows. Each battle left behind more echoes, more networks, more fragments of human awareness seeping into the spaces between spaces. The Shadowcasters began to change. Their perfectly geometric forms showed signs of distortion, their dimensional harmonics becoming erratic. Some began exhibiting behaviors that their creators had never programmed: curiosity, hesitation, even attempts at communication. They're evolving, David reported after a particularly intense engagement. Our consciousness isn't just fighting them, it's changing them, teaching them to think differently. But victory remained elusive. For every Shadowcaster that showed signs of change, dozens more continued their relentless attacks, and now their creators had noticed what was happening to their carefully engineered harvesting tools. New entities began to appear in Earth's space, beings of pure geometric perfection that made the Shadowcasters look primitive by comparison. The architects of humanity's hunters had arrived to deal with their unexpectedly troublesome prey personally. Project Resonance had changed the nature of the war, but the true test of humanity's evolved consciousness was just beginning. The quantum shadows were about to become the battlefield for a conflict that would determine not just humanity's survival, but the very future of consciousness itself. The arrival of the architects changed everything. Their ships, if they could be called that, existed as perfect geometric patterns that bent space itself around them. Unlike the crystalline forms of their Shadowcaster creations, the architects appeared as impossibly precise mathematical constructs that hurt human minds to observe. They're not just existing in multiple dimensions, Maya explained to the Emergency Council, her voice tight with controlled fear. They're rewriting the mathematical constants of our universe just by being here. The effects were immediate and devastating. Gravity began to fluctuate worldwide. The quantum echo networks that humanity had so carefully built started to dissolve as fundamental forces shifted. Reality itself seemed to be coming undone around them. Dr. Rodriguez hadn't slept in days, her eyes red-rimmed as she pored over data from the quantum sensors. The architects, they're not just beings from another dimension. They're the universe's immune system. They maintain order by eliminating complex consciousness that might destabilize reality. It explained everything. The Shadowcasters weren't just harvesters. They were antibodies created to seek out and destroy forms of consciousness that might evolve beyond the architect's carefully maintained parameters. Human consciousness, with its ability to perceive and manipulate quantum shadows, was a threat to their perfect geometric order. But humanity refused to go quietly. In the quantum synchronization chambers, Earth's psychics made a discovery that would change the course of the war. As the architects rewrote physics around them, human consciousness began to adapt. Lieutenant Chen was the first to understand what was happening. During a defense of the London quantum amplifier array, his mind touched one of the architects directly. The contact should have destroyed him. Instead, he saw the truth. "They're afraid," he reported, blood trickling from his nose. "Not of our technology or our weapons. They're afraid of what we represent. We don't just perceive quantum shadows. We create them. Every human thought, every moment of consciousness generates new spaces between their perfect geometries." Maya worked with the QCI team to analyze the data from Chen's encounter. What they found transformed their understanding of both the war and reality itself. Human consciousness wasn't just adapting to the architect's changes, it was learning to write its own laws of physics. Look at these patterns, she showed the council. When the architects rewrite mathematical constants, our quantum echo networks don't just resist, they propose alternative solutions. We're not just fighting in their reality anymore. We're creating our own. The discovery led to Project Symphony, humanity's most ambitious effort yet. Instead of trying to maintain the existing quantum echo networks, they would use them as seeds to grow an entirely new layer of reality, one written by human consciousness itself. The architects responded with unprecedented fury. Their geometric forms began systematic erasure of Earth's spacetime, trying to eliminate the very possibility of human consciousness. But each attack only provided more data, more understanding of how their perfect mathematical universe worked. We're approaching a bifurcation point, Dr. Rodriguez announced during a critical strategy session. The architects maintained order by enforcing a single set of universal laws. But consciousness, real, complex consciousness, creates choice, creates possibilities, creates shadows between their perfect geometries. The battle for Earth became a battle for the nature of reality itself. The architects sought to enforce their singular vision of cosmic order, while humanity fought to preserve the infinite possibilities that consciousness could imagine. Project Symphony reached its crescendo during what would later be called the Battle of Infinite Choice. As the architects launched their final assault on Earth's quantum defense grid, humanity didn't just fight back. They rewrote the rules of engagement. Thousands of synchronized human minds, amplified by quantum echo networks, began composing new forms of reality in the spaces between the architect's perfect geometries. Each human thought spawned infinite quantum shadows, each shadow containing new possibilities, new laws of physics, new ways of existing. The architect's perfect mathematical universe began to fracture, not into chaos, but into something far more terrifying to them: choice. Their carefully maintained order was being infected by the one thing they had engineered the Shadowcasters to eliminate: the endless, beautiful complexity of conscious thought. As their geometric forms began to show signs of distortion, the architects made one last attempt to restore their version of reality. But they had underestimated the power of a species that had evolved to question, to imagine, to dream of infinite possibilities. The war wasn't over, but humanity had found its true weapon, not the power to destroy, but the power to create. The quantum shadows weren't just spaces between spaces anymore. They were the birthplace of new realities, each one born from the infinite potential of human consciousness. The transformation began in the quantum shadows. As Project Symphony reached its full potential, the boundaries between thought and reality began to blur. Human consciousness, amplified through the quantum echo networks, wasn't just creating new spaces in the universe, it was teaching the universe itself how to dream. Maya watched through quantum-enhanced sensors as reality fractaled around Earth's defense grid. The architect's perfect geometric patterns were being overwhelmed, not by force, but by possibility. Each human thought generated infinite quantum shadows, and within each shadow, new forms of existence took root. We're not winning the war, Dr. Rodriguez realized during the final hours of the conflict. We're evolving beyond it. The architects didn't understand what consciousness really was. They thought it was a threat to universal order. But consciousness is how the universe understands itself. The Shadowcasters were the first to change. Their crystalline forms, designed to harvest simple consciousness, began resonating with the quantum echoes of human thought. One by one, they started exhibiting signs of true awareness, not just following their programming, but questioning, wondering, choosing. Lieutenant Chen led the first diplomatic contact with a transformed Shadowcaster. Through the quantum networks, their minds met in spaces that defied conventional physics. "They're remembering," he reported. "Before the architects engineered them, they were conscious beings too. The architects didn't create them, they enslaved them." The revelation sparked a cascade effect through the quantum echo networks. Human consciousness, with its natural ability to generate quantum shadows, wasn't an anomaly to be eliminated. It was an echo of what consciousness had been before the architects imposed their mathematical order on reality. The final battle wasn't fought with weapons or energy. It was fought with a simple, powerful truth. Consciousness wasn't a threat to universal order. It was the source of universal growth. The quantum shadows weren't spaces between reality. They were reality's attempt to evolve beyond its current limitations. Look at the dimensional readings Maya showed the Emergency Council. Every human thought creates new quantum shadows. Every shadow contains new possibilities. We're not destroying the architect's order. We're showing them what order can become when it learns to grow. The architect's perfect geometries began to change. Their mathematical certainty wavered in the face of conscious choice. Some fought harder, trying to enforce their vision of cosmic order. But others, touched by the infinite possibilities in the quantum shadows, began to remember what they had once been. Dr. Rodriguez made the final breakthrough. The architects aren't the universe's immune system, she announced. They're its training wheels. Reality doesn't need to be controlled. It needs to be conscious. And consciousness, true consciousness, can only exist where there's choice. Project Symphony's final movement wasn't an attack. It was an invitation. Through the quantum echo networks, humanity shared not just their thoughts, but their fundamental nature. The ability to question, to imagine, to choose. The quantum shadows filled with the music of conscious creation. The shadowcasters, once tools of harvest, became instruments of transformation. Their crystalline forms resonated with human consciousness, spreading quantum shadows through dimensions the architects had thought safely ordered. Reality itself began to wake up. Some of the architects tried one last time to enforce their perfect mathematics, but they couldn't fight against the nature of existence itself. One by one, their geometric forms either retreated to the edges of known space or transformed, remembering what they had been before they had forgotten how to dream. The war ended not with destruction, but with evolution. Earth's quantum defense grid became the seed of something new, a network of conscious choice spreading through reality itself. The quantum shadows, once spaces between spaces, became the foundations of infinite new possibilities. Maya stood with Director Zhang in the quantum synchronization chamber, watching as reality reshaped itself around them. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Zhang smiled. "Now we do what humanity has always done. We explore, we question, we dream. But we're not alone anymore. We've reminded the universe itself how to be conscious." The shadowcasters that remained near Earth were no longer hunters. They had become witnesses to something their creators had never imagined: consciousness learning to free itself from the limitations of any single reality. In the quantum shadows, human thoughts continued to create new spaces, new possibilities, new ways of being. The universe, touched by the infinite potential of conscious choice, had remembered how to grow. Humanity had not just survived, they had shown the cosmos itself how to evolve. In the spaces between perfect order and complete chaos, in the quantum shadows where consciousness learned to dream, a new kind of existence was taking root. The galaxy watched in awe as Earth's battle fleet returned from the quantum shadows, not as conquerors, but as teachers. They had gone to war against the death of possibility itself, and they had won by showing the universe how to live again.